HEIGAN stood over his alchemist's table, suffering a drought of innovation on his current task. His task was concocting an alchemical formula to destroy all the wildlife in the plague lands and make them inhospitable to anyone but the dead. He looked over the herbs at his disposal, gathered by his loyal scourge underlings. Sungrass, mountain silver sage, dreamfoil. With those three alone, he had a near infinite number of different potions he could make, but every time he strained his mind, he found himself back in the time before the dread citadel Naxxramas hovered over the city of Stratholm. He had already been an alchemist in life. His expertise was highly valued all over Lordaeron, and therefore he had accumulated a significant personal wealth over the years. He was hard at work on a potential masterstroke in his field of science. He was close to completing the formula for a hypothetical potion that healed all ailments over a single day and night, a panacea of sorts. His house in Corin's Crossing had been a quaint one, far away enough from the inn to allow him peace during his studies. He got up from his chair in the study and moved to answer the knocking on his door. He opened it to find his loving partner Fairlina Valdemar waiting at the door, flowers in hand. She was a skilled botanist from Tyr's hand, and they had found each other on the job, as their fields of work coincided so easily with one another. They immediately embrace, and HEIGAN noticed the herbs in Fairlina's hands were just the ones he needed for further study. Their embrace turned to a waltz as HEIGAN expertly led Fairlina up the stairs in perfect tact. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He was about to show her the fruits of his labor when she suddenly started coughing. HEIGAN asked if she was all right, but she couldn't form an answer through the hacking. It was when Fairlina spewed blood over HEIGAN's shirt that he realized she was inflicted with a deadly wasting disease. He quickly led her to his bed and once again sat down in his study, now more determined than ever before to finish his formula. After countless dead ends, HEIGAN even resorted to asking around town for any sort of help, desperately spending his hard-earned money on fraudulent faith healers and false mystics. So close, yet so far from his goal, he summoned the last of his willpower and worked late into the night. It was then that another knock sounded at the door. Careful not to wake his suffering partner, he hurried to the door to find an aged man waiting for him. He introduced himself as Kel'Thuzad. He claimed to have heard about the sickness gripping Fairlina and offered a solution to HEIGAN's potion that would complete it and be able to heal his beloved. The catch, however, was that HEIGAN would have to swear loyalty to this mysterious cult of the damned. HEIGAN, in his desperation, accepted the deal, upon which Kel'Thuzad gave him 2 items: a strange misty orange liquid in a vial, and a skull-shaped trinket. He pocketed the latter and immediately added the liquid to his potion. After a brief moment of panic, in which HEIGAN thought the vial might just explode, it stabilized, and he moved to give it to Fairlina. The sight of her condition made him sick. The bed covers were crimson with blood, and the botanist looked as if she had been dead for a week. Her skin appeared too tightly pulled over her skull, and she had lost all color from her hair. Gently he awoke her and held the flask to her lips. The liquid slid down her throat, and HEIGAN waited, and waited, and waited. Nothing was changing. HEIGAN was beginning to lose more and more hope until Fairlina shot upright in her bed and seemed to be completely healed. They both once again found themselves in a teary embrace, and, fueled by elation, they began their waltz once more. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all the way to the nearby pond, where they laid down in exhaustion, simply enjoying each other's presence. HEIGAN was relieved beyond measure that his dear Felina had survived, and he swore to her he would never be unprepared for an incident like that again. Suddenly, Felina began convulsing violently, to HEIGAN's great dismay. Shattered at the reality that sickness had beaten him in the end, he collapsed, crying over Felina's still spasming form. He watched her eyes glaze over and the spasms cease, and it was then that he gave up on everything he believed in. Behind him, he heard the voice of Kel'Thuzad, who had followed them there, whispering in a dark tongue. He turned around to see the old man with dark magic circling his hands. He ended the incantation and shot forth the darkness toward Felina. HEIGAN watched as Felina slowly rose from death, only to kneel in front of Kel'Thuzad, awaiting his commands. HEIGAN realized everything he needed to know in that moment. Life was a bitter shame. It was the start of a pointless story that always ended the same. Yet before him stood his lover, transcended beyond meaningless mortality, embracing undeath and all the glory it offered. HEIGAN felt the skull-shaped trinket growing heavier in his pocket. He emulated his partner and knelt before Kel'Thuzad to be answered with calm praise. The necromancer emphasized the large amount of work they all had to do, and the couple, not done part by death, followed Kel'Thuzad into the blackened night. It suddenly hit HEIGAN, such that he almost fell over in his chambers in Naxxramas. He recalled the final ingredient he needed for his plague. Following the necromancer through the night, he had seen the herb he required. Tears of Arthas. He ordered the ghouls surrounding him to gather the final ingredient, greedily rubbing his hands together. HEIGAN made his way to the Arachnid Quarter, ignoring Noth the Plaguebringer's snide comments about his craft as he passed him. He entered the breeding room of the Grand Widow, laying eyes on his beloved once more. He passed all the cultists toiling over potent poisons, breeding arachnids, and approached Felina. Her back was turned to him as she was tending to a batch of 8-legged recruits. She turned to HEIGAN with a baleful stare as he asked her if she needed assistance. She callously declined the offer, stating that she did not want the arachnids ruined by a fool with no breeding expertise. HEIGAN asked if Felina needed any potions to strengthen the brood, but was again coldly denied. The arachnids would not be spoiled by experimental augments under her supervision. HEIGAN turned around and started walking back to his chambers, a smile slowly forming on his face. One thought dominated his mind in his walk. She had talked to him. As he arrived back in his chamber, he was delighted, so much so that he could not help it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He continued until Noth's complaining got loud enough, and he returned to the task at hand, scourging all life from Azeroth.